What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories, the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, we're going to be joined by Sean Woodley of Locked On Raptors, as the Raptors are finally whole again, dealing with so many injuries to Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, then health and safety protocols. That team is finally together again. Can they make a push in the Eastern Conference? But first, a quick message from our friends over at Built Bar, because look, it's the new year. That means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or maybe even better than a candy bar. Look, Built Bar makes it easy to stick to your New Year's resolutions because it tastes so good, you'll want to eat it. Unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or gritty, or the consistency is just off. And then not to mention the flavors that they have over at Built Bar: strawberry, cookies and cream, mint brownie, cookie dough. I mean, my personal favorite, coconut brownie chunk. You cannot go wrong with a single flavor on their menu. And you can check them out. Just visit built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order of the best tasting protein bars on the market. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Joining us now is Sean Woodley of Locked On Raptors. Sean, I'm very excited to be able to talk Raptors with you because I want the record to show that I believed in this team from the jump of the season. We can go dig up the receipts from a Thursday edition of Locked On NBA. I have been a big proponent of this Raptors team since before this season even started. And look, I mean, it's been a month and a half since the Raptors have had all of VanVleet, Siakam, Anunoby, and Barnes all in the lineup together. How great is it to just see them all back on the floor together?
Yeah, watching them today against like a Knicks team that was admittedly very depleted because of COVID and injuries. So I guess grains of salt are to be had there. But like, it was a delight to watch all these guys together. This team, it was kind of sort of lauded for its like weird, bizarro vision from the offseason, right? They draft Scotty Barnes and everyone's like, well, they should just take a point guard to replace Kyle Lowry. And it very clearly sort of signaled a pivot towards we don't care about positions anymore. We're just going to roll with the players we like. And if you're 6'8" or 6'9", that's even better. And so this was kind of the vision that they had coming in, and they haven't had the personnel on hand to execute the vision at all, right? Like they've done their best. They've tried to, make certain guys work in certain spots, but it has not come together. But yeah, today against the Knicks, it was the first time, like as you said, in a month and a half, they've had their four core guys. If you throw Scotty Barnes into that, which you should because he's awesome. It's only the fourth time we've seen their starting five unit as well of those four guys plus Gary Trent Jr. all play together. And it's only the first time all season long we've seen their top 8 rotation players together all at once. So yeah, it's been a long road to this through COVID and injury and all that. But the fact that they're 16 and 17 now and seem to kind of be hitting this wave of health after not having any all season long, while the rest of the league seems to be in a tailspin, it seems like they're kind of set up here to go on a bit of a run and actually execute that vision they've been sort of talking about and sort of teasing all along.
How much better, Sean, do you think this Raptors team is than their current record would indicate?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the record, too. Like, their sort of numbers, their sort of peripheral stuff is a little bit out of whack because they had a game last week where they played against the Cavaliers with 4 rotation players who were all kind of deep bench guys and then 4 replacement players, and they lost by 45, and that kind of threw all of their metrics out of whack. But I think this team is, for me, like if you look at like the cluster of teams in the Eastern Conference, the Wizards, the Hawks, the Hornets, the Celtics. Like, I think the Hawks are the only team whose roster I'd take ahead of them, anyone who's below the 6th seed right now. And I honestly would take the Raptors roster ahead of maybe even the Cavs without Ricky Rubio. Like, they're a pretty deep and good team. And I think there's a real case to say they could push for a 6th seed right now. They haven't lost a ton of ground based on, they've kind of treaded water pretty well here, mostly because Fred VanVleet has been like an absolute horse for them. We should probably talk about him because he's been incredible. But like that sort of treading of water and getting to this sort of close to 500 mark as you go into the new year here, I think it does set them up to really be one of those potential top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference. And maybe that's a little bit too big for their britches. They have a lot of teams to jump, but I think they have clearly the best defense of any of those teams kind of in that sort of below 6 seeded range. I guess we call that the play-in now, so I can just say that. I'm learning words here. I'm rusty. It's the holidays.
It's a good thing we don't talk for a living, right?
Definitely not. Yeah, no, it's fine. back to where I was going. Yeah, I think their roster, their talent, and the fact that you have a couple of their guys in particular, and Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam playing some of the best basketball we've ever seen from those two guys, suggests that this very much is a team that can potentially get into that, actual playoff spot and not even be in the play-in by the season's end.
I need to make sure there's not like a mirror or something behind me, because my very next question that I had for you was true to his name. Steady Freddy has been one of the constants for this Raptors team. He's having another stellar season. He's averaging basically 25-7 on 43, 39, 87 shooting splits. Incredible numbers for him. Should we be getting ready to call him All-Star Fred VanVleet?
I don't think there's any question that he deserves to be one of the 12 East All-Stars. Whether he'll get the votes, who knows? Like, obviously, it's going to come down for him likely to the coaches' vote. And he does kind of feel like a coachy player, like he's like a 6 foot or 5'11" floor general who yells at people and is a good leader and all that stuff. Like, feels like kind of a coach type pick, but like he 100% should be in the top 12 of Eastern Conference of All-Star consideration. He's been outstanding. His sort of on-court sort of, the numbers to reflect just sort of like the sort of under the radar stuff he does have always kind of been there. But this year he's matched that with incredible production across the board. You mentioned the 21, 5, and 7 that he's at. He had 35 points today, 7 made threes, a ton of pull-up threes, just totally stretching the Knicks defense to its very wits end. And he's just been that constant all the way through, right? Like this team is nowhere near 16-17, if not for Fred VanVleet during this start of the season. He's been just everything for them. They've fallen apart when he's not been on the floor. Last I checked, they were 21 points better per 100 possessions with him on the floor versus him off. They get absolutely blitzed when he's not out there. He's been amazing. And I think, he's not like the sexiest, like he's not going to do much in an all-star game that's like dunking or hilarious passes or anything like that. He'll just make really smart dig downs on double teams and whatnot. And that'll be like his sort of all-star contribution. But I think he should 100% be there. He has been one of the best players in the Eastern Conference this season, one of the best guards for sure. And I think you'll likely start to see people talk about it more if they start winning some games here now that they're healthy.
We've got to take a moment to acknowledge Scotty Barnes, who I will say, because I'm just out here trying to earn some rapport with Raptors fans, because I think Scotty Barnes is my favorite non-Rockets rookie in
Sure.
the NBA. I'm so high on him. I think he's got an incredibly high ceiling. He's already so impactful at the NBA level, coming in at the most recent NBA, NBA.com Kia, like whatever rookie ladder thing. He's clocked in at number 2. What has impressed you about his rookie campaign so far, Sean?
I mean, everything. He's been insane. But I think the thing that's great about
Okay, what
Scotty Barnes is,
specifically has
yeah,
impressed you? There we go.
yeah. I think the thing that I really like about Scotty Barnes is that he just seems to learn really quickly. Like, he won't make the same mistake more than once or twice, and he kind of figures it out. And like, he's been emboldened by the Raptors to try stuff out too and test his limits. And so now you're seeing him taking multiple threes a game. You're seeing him get the ball in his hands and he's asked to create and make offense. And I think you're going to see something really interesting going forward here. And again, there will be some learning and sort of growing pains to go along with this, I'm sure. But the Raptors haven't really had a backup point guard all season. In their first game at full health, they basically had Scotty Barnes be their backup point guard. They took him out early, brought him in with the bench, didn't play Malachi Flynn, who was kind of the projected backup point guard coming into the season. And if they're going to let Barnes do that, I mean, he's been just a delight to watch in the open court, in the half court. He's got so many counters already. He can kind of get his own shot in the middle of the floor as well. And so there's all these different things you can do with him. And they just keep throwing stuff at him and he's learning it. They're like, all right, Scotty Barnes, you're the center now. And he's like, okay, I'm a rim protector and I'm good at defense. And I can also score in the middle of the defense and create from the short roll. It's all right, Scotty Barnes, you're handling the ball now. Okay, I'll have 5 assists in this game and also get my own shot off. Like, he just kind of does everything you ask of him and is just so eager and willing to learn. And it's just, you shouldn't have that kind of processing speed as a 20-year-old in your rookie season, but it's there. And I think he's kind of accelerated what you can expect from this team. And I think, within a couple of years, you could probably pencil him in to be the best player on the team. But for now, he's just this wonderful connective tissue providing role player for this Raptors team who can take over in a pinch when he has to. But now that they're fully healthy, he doesn't really have to do that stuff. And I think you're just going to see him be one of the best role players in basketball because of all that stuff he can do and the dynamism he brings to the table. He's been an absolute delight. And yeah, I would say the fact that he can just process and learn things so quickly has been the reason for his success if you're looking for one sort of overall takeaway.
Besides just staying healthy, now that they are healthy, besides
Mhm.
staying healthy, what does this Raptors team need to improve on to make a legitimate push towards the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, their second unit has to be better, right? It has not been good all season long. It's been kind of a rule that no matter who the starters are, they're going to be awesome and score like 100 points combined, and the bench will maybe scrounge together 11 points or something like that. It's been kind of uncanny all year long. But now that you have this starting five intact, hopefully, knock on wood, you can play two or three of those guys with second unit guys at all times. There's no need to have fewer than two or three of your main five guys on the floor, and that's just going to make things a lot easier for guys like Chris Boucher and Yuta Watanabe and Precious Achua and Kem Birch to find their sort of roles and niches off of the bench. I think that's kind of the big thing here. It's also just kind of like getting the defensive side of the ball kind of back up to speed. This was a team that started off the season horribly on the defensive side, and they play a really complex, dynamic system that requires a lot of attention to detail, chemistry, kind of being on a string. And it's just going to take some time to build that up. But I do think they have the potential to be a top 10 defense by the time the season is over. It's just a matter of building up that chemistry, which has not quite been there in the moments where they have been fully healthy this year. But otherwise, like, look, I'm not saying this is a team that's going to go win 2 rounds in the Eastern Conference or anything like that. But can they be a super annoying first round out, potentially win a round if the bracket breaks the right way? I don't see why not. And I think because of just the guys they have on board. You mentioned, like, other than being healthy, like that's been the battle all season long is health. And now that that battle is hopefully taken care of, the rest of the stuff should kind of take care of itself.
Last thing here for you, Sean. What's the latest on Goran Dragic? Should we be expecting a trade, a buyout? What's going on that front?
Yeah, I have no idea. Like the logic here is all right, you bring in Goran Dragic and hopefully you kind of play him, showcase him for some other team, and then you flip him. That's not what happened. I don't really know the whole story. I don't think anyone really knows the whole story here, whether it's like a real personal thing for Dragic and he, had like an urgent need to leave the team, or if it was just like a kind of mutual understanding. He's not playing, so I'm just going to go hang out with my family and we'll figure this whole thing out. At this point, I don't know what the trade looks like because he hasn't really performed to a degree where some team out there is going to say, yes, Goran Dragic is the answer. I know there's been scuttlebutt about the Heat maybe wanting him back or him wanting to go back to the Heat. The Mavs have been connected all along because of the Luka Doncic and Dragic connection with Slovenia. So we'll see, but like it's really hard to find a match right now because Dragic makes a lot of money too, right? The Raptors aren't just going to take back money for the sake of taking back money. It'll have to be expiring money if they're going to do it, unless they really kind of fancy themselves as stealthy contender and then they want to go make some move to add. Maybe Dragic plus a pick can kind of be a package they can do to get a person in. I think Eric Gordon is kind of like the apple of Raptors fans' eyes right now. We can maybe talk about this on our own podcast sometime, Jackson. But like, that's a possibility, I suppose. But it's hard to see any deal coming together considering we haven't seen Dragic whatsoever. So I guess I would sort of lean on the side of a buyout right now, but anything could happen. He could get called back from over in Slovenia where he's been hanging out and he could come and play. And, maybe he has a good month or so that puts him back on the radar for some teams. It's really tricky to kind of sort out. But, I don't think he's going to play for the Raptors probably again. And I think, what they get for him is kind of irrelevant at this point. I think they're just kind of hanging on and seeing and they'll get with the best thing they can. But ultimately, the sort of prize of that deal with the Heat to get Kyle Lowry was Precious Achua, who's been kind of impressive so far. And I think if you can get anything to add to that as your return for Lowry, you're probably pretty happy.
Forget what the haters are going to say. This Raptors team is a team on the rise. Sean, always a pleasure to be able to talk hoops with you, and you're going to have us covered for everything Raptors over at Locked On Raptors. Thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Anytime, Jackson. Thanks for having me, man.